I decided to make a part 2 of the Wahls protocol because there's so much information in it that there's a couple more things I want to touch on to make you really understand and be aware of how eating for our cellular health and our mitochondria is so important. And I'm going to be going over more information that Terry Wahls has in her book. Have you been diagnosed with MS and you're looking for more answers outside your typical medical system? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Adrienne. I'm a nutritionist and a certified integrative nutritional health coach. And I became interested in holistic health because I reversed my own MS symptoms over 10 years ago. Yes, reversing MS is possible. I'm living proof along with so many others. And I enjoy helping others reverse their symptoms too. Are you ready to learn a few things today? I am. Let's dive in. I wanted to expand a little bit more on the Wahls diet. So this is part 2. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on each one. So she has 3 different diets in here. And I did the Wahls diet, which is diet number 1. And I had remitting, relapsing, or relapsing, remitting. That was the stage I was in. And then the Wahls Paleo, and then the Wahls Paleo Plus. So here's how she describes all of them. The Wahls diet. The most basic level kickstarts your system by infusing it with intense nutrition and removing dairy elements that could be contributing to your decline. Diet number 2, the Wahls Paleo. This is the next level and the level where people may choose to stay. This provides a more structure to further eliminate dairy elements that can compromise your gut health. And number 3 is the Wahls Paleo Plus. This is the most challenging level and is also the most therapeutic for those with autoimmune conditions and is particularly beneficial for anyone with neurological or psychological issues. All right, so the basics of diet number 1, the Wahls diet, is 9 cups of fruits and vegetables every day, broken down as follows. Bullet point number 1, 3 cups tightly packed raw or cooked leafy greens like kale, collards, chard. These are dark greens. Bullet point number 2, 3 cups deeply colored veggies and fruits such as berries, tomatoes, beets, carrots, or winter squash. Bullet point number 3, 3 cups of sulfur-rich veggies like broccoli, cabbage, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, turnips, etc. And she writes in here, I recognize that 9 cups is a lot. So to break this down, I am 5'6", and I'm a pretty small boned person. I'd call myself medium small boned. 3 cups for me was a lot. So what I did is I took that down to 2.5 to 2 cups a day of each of these food groups. And then, of course, number 2, and this goes for all diets, she wants you to be gluten-free and dairy-free. And number 3, and this goes for all diets too, she wants you to eat organic, grass-fed, and wild-caught animal protein. Okay, so then level 2, the Wahls Paleo, gets a little bit more strict. So she says, reduce all non-gluten grains. She presumes that you're completely gluten-free by now, and she wants you to reduce legumes and potatoes to just 2 servings per week. Now, on the middle diet, she also wants you to add seaweed or algae and organ meats to your diet. And then she also wants you to add fermented foods, soaked seeds and nuts, and more raw foods. This can look like raw fruits and veggies, and fermented foods like lacto-fermented sauerkraut, pickles, kimchi, and kombucha tea. By the way, I love kombucha tea. I've even made it, and you can make it too. It requires patience, and it takes some time. But if you have time on your hands, it's pretty fun to make. Okay, level 3, the Wahls Paleo Plus. She says this is the most extreme and intense level. And I would say those of you in a wheelchair where you've got a lot going on, this is probably the diet you want to follow or you want to heal the quickest. So on this diet, she wants you to eliminate all greens, all legumes, and all potatoes. She says consume at least 6 cups of veggies divided evenly between greens, color, and sulfur veggies. She says you won't be as hungry on this diet and you won't be able to eat as much, so you'll be cutting back the amount of veggies that you're going to eat. She says reduce cooked, starchy veggies and fruit. Limit cooked starchy vegetables to 2 servings a week, no more. She said you can have less. If you have a cooked starchy veggie like winter squash or beets, for example, you'll need to add a generous amount of fat such as coconut oil. And she also wants you to limit fruit to 1 serving per day, preferably berries like, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, etc. And then she wants you to add coconut oil and full fat coconut milk. She says that Wahls Paleo Plus is a high fat diet, which, contrary to what you might have read about good health, is not harmful to your heart. Remember the fat phase, the low fat phase? Well, that was bad science. Actually, we need fats. Our brain is mostly made of fat, so we need fats for our bodies to function correctly. And we were given the wrong information for a long time. I just had to distinguish what a good fat was versus a bad fat or a trans fat. A trans fat is a bad fat. So Wahls says a high fat diet coupled with a relatively low carbohydrate intake will actually provide the most intense nutritional support for your brain and your heart. This diet is even closer to how our ancestors ran their metabolisms for 2.5 million years. The fat in the diet is converted to ketones. So the keto diet, that's what the Wahls Paleo Plus is closest to. So again, she says the fat in the diet is converted to ketones, which are excellent sources of energy for our mitochondria, brain cells, and muscle cells. She says this is why our species could survive and even thrive during the winters, which were typically a time of very limited carbohydrate intake and during famine and war. So then she says she also wants you to eat twice per day and fast 12 to 16 hours every night. And she says because you're eating a diet that is higher in fat, she said you won't be as hungry. She also says this significantly increases the vigor and number of mitochondria in your cells. Then she goes on to say your brain will love it. I also want to touch on how she described in her book how animal protein every day is crucial. So really in every diet, she wants you to eat a good amount of animal protein. She said that you should eat 9 to 21 ounces of meat each day according to your size and gender. And she says, remember to choose organic, grass-fed, or wild-caught whenever possible. And she says she wants to talk about this more in depth because she was a vegetarian in her early years. So here's what she says. For more than a decade, I did not eat any meat, poultry, or fish. But now I'm a firm believer in the importance of animal protein, especially for people suffering from chronic health issues. She says, I recognize this is a controversial position, so I want to give you my reasons. She says, let's start by looking at the great benefits you'll be receiving from eating animal protein. So she goes on to say, our bodies need to manufacture proteins to make our cellular structures, many of which require complicated molecules. And these proteins are all manufactured from amino acids, which we get from protein. Because there's so many amino acids we need, our body will go into drastic measures to get them if we don't provide them. She says, for example, if we don't have the correct amount of amino acids to make the proteins needed for the body, it will resort to autophagy, which means eating oneself. She says, this means that we begin eating or cannibalizing and digesting some of our own muscle and organ cells. The body takes what it needs for its most essential tasks, even if it means sacrificing parts of itself that it deems less essential. Then she goes on to say that the great thing about eating meat is that it contains all of the essential amino acids, so you'll get everything that your body needs. She says plants, however, do not contain all the amino acids necessary for the body. She says if vegetarians eat only grains or only legumes, they're not consuming a complete protein and will need to digest some portion of their own bodies to get the missing amino acids. And I agree with her. I'm an animal lover too. And if our bodies didn't need all of these amino acids and protein and how it's so much easier to get this from animal products, I would be a vegetarian or a vegan. And I know my body, when I don't get enough protein, animal protein, I feel tired, weak, and a lot of the times I'm hungry. All right, here's the last bit that I want to explain to you about omega-3 and omega-6. So essential fatty acids are the fats we need and cannot make ourselves. And she goes on to write, for the first 2.5 million years of Homo sapiens, we ate omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. We ate things like plants, seeds that had omega-6, but we also ate a lot of wild animals that foraged on grasses and other grains, and wild fish all contain omega-3 fatty acids. This provided us with that 1-to-1 balance. And when you have a 1-to-1 balance, it's associated with a lower risk of both neurological and cardiovascular issues. And then she goes on to say, today, the American diet is different. The ratio has drastically been skewed. And because we eat so many seed oils, this is like corn oil, soybean oil, and canola oil, for example. This is omega-6. And then she said there's also an increase in animals eating grains. So, for example, like beef ranches, if they don't eat grass, your typical steak that you buy is on a ranch where they are fed grain. And this dramatically increases the omega-6 characteristic. So their ratio has gone way up. She says that Americans have diets that are high today as a 15-to-1 or even a 45-to-1 ratio. This is part of the reason why I want to make sure I get enough omega-3. You can have more omega-3 than 6, but not the other way around. So I take an omega-3 supplement every single day. So I hope this helps you guys understand a little bit more about each diet and how she has designed them for your cellular health. And as Americans, we don't get enough nutrients. We eat way too many grains and breads, pasta, pizza, hamburgers, and not enough nutrient-dense foods and not enough good fats. I had to learn all this when I got my health coaching certificate. It was a year-long program, and I had to learn all this. It's too bad we don't get the correct information nowadays. I really don't think kids are taught this in school. I hope they are. There might be some schools that do teach this kind of thing, but it's really important that we're educated on this. And I've said this before, think about this. 60% of us in the US have a chronic disease of some sort. And then 40% of Americans have 2 or more chronic diseases. To me, this is insane. And because we eat too much bread, too much sugar, over 70% of us are overweight. And if we were taught from the beginning about these diets and how they can lead to disease later on, and how you can heal yourself by changing your diet and changing your lifestyle, healing is possible. Doctors won't tell you this. And in my program, diet is half of it. The other half is lifestyle. The other half is managing your mental and emotional health, as well as getting outside, getting sunshine, getting exercise in. Make sure you're taking care of your stress, making sure you're taking care of yourself. So if you need support, you can always reach out to me at info@nourishyourway.com. I hope today's episode has helped you a little bit. And until next time, you will hear from me soon.